Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of A Night to Remember, directed by Roy Baker, released in 1958. So, I recently reviewed James Cameron's version of Titanic, and I was requested by my subscriber and friend, Jack McCullough, to review this movie. So, this is for Jack, and he is going to be reviewing, well, or probably ranting on the Emoji Movie, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be quite a screamer. Anyway, so the plot of A Night to Remember, basically it's pretty much a retelling of the Titanic sinking in 1912 after it hits an iceberg. That's really the plot. I can't really go into any more detail with the plot. You see certain characters here and there, but that's really it. It's about the sinking of the Titanic in 1912. A Night to Remember. So yeah, I watched this movie just now on YouTube. It's actually on YouTube if you want to check it out. I'll leave the link to the film in the description of my review. And overall, I thought this film was really, really good. Yeah. I'm not really a big fan of like historical films. Partly because I'm crap at history. I've got this terrible memory with these sort of films, and the few historical films I've seen, I've enjoyed. But sometimes it takes a lot for me to watch these things. I mean, this is very different to the James Cameron version. I mean, in comparison, I think what stands out about this movie is that basically what I like about it is that it cuts to the chase. It pretty much throws you right in. I mean, after the first half an hour, it then throws you into the sinking, and then from there, the tension just rises, 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 and rises. Like the James Cameron movie, when the sinking happens in that, the emotional gravity and the tension just rises and rises and rises. And it makes for quite a pretty intense experience. I think Roy Baker's direction is great. And the producer of this film apparently was very young and saw the Titanic leaving, so you can obviously tell they've done their research. They've put quite a lot into this, and this movie, I believe, it won a Golden Globe, which is interesting. There's some good characters. I mean, well, the performers are good, obviously, including Blackman. Blackman's in this movie. Yeah, most people will know her from Goldfinger as Pussy Galore, the Bond girl. Desmond Llewellyn is in this movie as well in a brief cameo. Also, he plays Q in most of the James Bond movies. So, and Kenneth obviously is like the main character in this movie. There's a few others, but I don't really know their names, so I'm not going to dwell on them too much. Yeah, and I liked it. I thought it was very, very well done. Just like the James Cameron movie, the production design is amazing. Seeing the interior of the Titanic is fantastic, and seeing it come to life, only to be destroyed, it's really quite something. And again, like the Cameron movie, it captures the complete, the complete emotional tension of the situation. People clambering to the boats, people jumping for their lives. It's chaos. It was chaos. The one thing this movie doesn't really do, though, is world build. There's not really any world building. You don't get a sense of the classes. That's one thing James Cameron did over this movie, is that he took his time. He really did take his time to establish the fact of the society and the world they lived in. The fact of the higher class, the middle class, and then the lower class. I mean, you get a sense of it here, but it's not really the main focus. And there are no fictional characters in this story. Speaking of the characters, if I had to make one complaint about this movie, yeah, the characters. I obviously I understand that they are all based on non-fictional individuals, and so that's fine. But I found the first half an hour very difficult to follow. There was a lot of characters for most of the movie. I couldn't remember who half of them were. I mean, it's not a major problem, but I just thought it was very hard to tell. I mean, there's no central protagonist. This isn't really about a character, because this isn't a character piece. This is a historical piece, and I understand that. But I just found the beginning of the movie very sloppy. The first half an hour was like all over the place. It was like this character, then this character, then this character. They're just throwing all these characters at you. It's like, I don't remember who half these people are. Come the second half, I still felt I got the feels, I still felt the emotion of the situation, but I didn't know the names of all these characters. I'm sorry, I just couldn't remember. I mean, the first half an hour is a bit slow. It does take its time, but it's not as long and baggy as the James Cameron movie. I mean, this movie's only 2 hours, and that one was over 3 hours, so that was an hour longer than this one. And there's no cheesy love story here, even though I like the love story in James Cameron's movie. I mean, I'm not trying to, I hate to compare it to James Cameron's movie, but they're both about the same event in history. You know, this was an important time in our history, and even today, people still think about it, and you know, it really does make you think. You really do feel like you're there, you're in the situation, and you feel like, and there are shots where children are dead, you know, people are freezing to death in the water. When the ship finally starts crashing, all of the interior is exploding. It's all spectacular, and it gets to you. It really does get to you, because you really feel like, oh, a lot of people died. A lot of people really suffered at the hands of this event. I mean, it was totally unexpected. Nobody knew this was going to happen, and they weren't prepared for it. They just weren't. I mean, there were clearly not enough boats to carry the entire, you know, amount of passengers, and they, you know, I mean, they weren't allowed to have any more. They had to meet certain regulations, but it's a shame that they couldn't break those regulations. So yeah, it's a very interesting film to watch, in the sense of you really get another perspective on what it was like. James Cameron's version is a bit different, because he adds in the fictional characters for you to. I mean that love story was basically added in for fangirls. Let's be honest, but I mean it works. It worked. I mean that movie definitely, at least, had a bit more character development than this, I would say. But there are some, you know, I mean, you get the sense of the societies in this movie. You get the sense of all the characters they throw at you. You get the sense of at least who they are and where they come from. I mean, there's no point. I mean, in a way, there's no point developing the characters, because they're all going to die. So I mean, that's a harsh thing to say, but it's the sad truth of it. But it would have been nice in the first half an hour to get a sense of, just to get a bit more of a sense of like who they are. Like, character distinctions is my main problem. I can't distinguish the characters other than class. I can't distinguish personality-wise. I cannot distinguish the characters. I mean, obviously the sailors are, you know, pretty distinctive, and the captain. But in terms of obviously, you know, the individualities of each character, it's not really there, and that kind of is a bit of a major problem for me. But I mean, obviously, I mean the script is fine. You know, it's apparently is based on a book, which is adapted into a screenplay, which is good. I mean, it's 2 hours and it moves along fine. It's very interesting. I do think that. I mean, there's no music score in this movie. I think I mean, there's music from the band that play live in the film, and that's nice. But it would have been nice to have an actual soundtrack. But oh well. I think this is a very good film, and it's definitely worth watching if you're into this sort of thing. If you've seen James Cameron's movie, just to compare, just see this as well. And I want to thank Jack for recommending me to watch this movie. So I'm going to rate A Night to Remember 9 out of 10. I don't think it's perfect. It was a little slow to begin with, and some of the characters, like I say, the individualities aren't clear. But overall, it's very good, and it's a very emotionally harrowing film to watch. So, you know, but there's just a couple of little minor problems I have with it, but overall it's very good. I think if I was to say which version's better, like this or James Cameron's one, I can't decide. I think both are very good. I think both are equally as good as each other, although James Cameron's movie is longer, which is slightly more of a problem. And he just tells, like, it's a different take. It's a different version. His version tells the account of what happened through somebody who's in the modern day, who's telling the story to people in the modern day, and then we go back in time to see it. Whereas this is, we're pretty much in 1912 for the entire movie, and it's great. So yeah, that's my review of A Night to Remember, guys. Stay tuned for more reviews. In light of the upcoming Kingsman sequel, I'm going to be reviewing Stardust, which is a Matthew Vaughn movie, the guy who's directing Kingsman, The Golden Circle. Stardust is a film I've wanted to review for quite some time. So, with that in mind, thank you all for watching, and as always, I'm Mr. Thomas11. See ya.